So, in this segment, we're going to be talking a bit more about the A level U turn and kind of the fact that Gavin Williamson is still in charge of education, and kind of one of my theories about why that is still the case. And so, I guess the point of this segment is to say that the person in charge of Ofqual, one of the top dons at Ofqual, has fallen on the sword and they've resigned over this whole fiasco. And Gavin Williamson is still in a job. So at the end, I'll give my theory about why Gavin Williamson is still in a job. There's two possible theories, but this embarrassing U-turn from Gavin Williamson. If we look here, Gavin Williamson is drawing a line after this is before the U-turn. Gavin Williamson is drawing a line after a week of unrelenting criticism from schools, Labour and the trade unions, Tory MPs, and even Michael Gove's wife, the journalist Sarah Vine. He's adamant that A-level grading system is here to stay. This is it. The education sector says no U-turn, no change. And so here we've got a video clip of him also talking about that.
Cast iron guarantee, triple locked, if you will, that you will not be forced into the embarrassing U-turn that John Swinney and Nicola Sturgeon were in Scotland. That standardisation, this scheme that you have been warned about for months, is staying. You're not going to be doing a U-turn.
Absolutely. And when we've consulted widely, and when Ofqual consulted widely in terms of the whole system of awarding, this is the message that we got from everyone. This is the right approach to go forward. You've got to have a system that has checks and balances, that looks at the whole performance and making sure that you maintain standards within the exam system to ensure that that those results carry credibility.
So he was really worried about grade inflation, and he was talking about a bit about the algorithm there, I guess, in a way, and saying that it's important to find a system that's robust and all this stuff, right? And we'll get to Bojo the Wonder Clown. I think I have to do a segment on him over this whole thing at one point. And so we go to a second clip. This is post U-turn, where Gavin Williamson defers all responsibility basically to Ofqual and says, I kind of didn't know about this, bro. We were told only a few kids are going to be affected, bro. And, that's not my responsibility, bro.
But when did you first become aware of the problems with the algorithm?
Oh yeah, and the dude here, what's his name? Niall or Neil? I think he pronounced Niall. He does a really good job here and just stays on him. Like, there's some Pachi Sung level marking out here, man.
Well, it became apparent that there were challenges within the algorithm when we are seeing the results directly coming out, and then over the weekend.
I love this guy's face. He's got the journalist face, the guy interviewing. He's got that the guy from the Axios interview. He's got the similar face. If I find a picture, I'll put it up.
We'd got concerns before the. When we saw what had happened in Scotland, we wanted to have a more robust system.
So he had, I think it was a 2-week head start we had on Scotland, where Scotland put their sort of results out first, and then the UK were like, okay, how do we make this system worse? I know, we'll let independent schools get off a bit easier, and they'll go off teacher assessed grades. But those peasants in the state schools, nah, give them an algorithm.
Put in place.
This weekend, I mean, that's just not the case, is it? I mean, the Education Select Committee took evidence back in June about the negative effects that this system would have on disadvantaged students. They published the report in July. Robert Halfon saying there is a risk it will lead to unfair bias and discrimination against already disadvantaged groups. There was modelling showing that 40% of A-level results would be affected by this system.
So it's important to remember, I've covered this in a previous segment talking about this. There were people who did the modelling on this, and one guy figured about 40% of students would be impacted by this. And so Gavin Williams said before that, it's only going to be a few students possibly impacted by this. And what they would have said is they would blame the teachers for that, saying the teachers have overinflated the grades. And so what we can gather from this is the fact that Gavin Williamson is trying to plead ignorance here, but he's not going to be able to, purely because they were told in advance what's the possibilities of what could happen. So we carry on.
In a negative fashion back in July as well. The idea that you are not aware of this until the weekend simply doesn't stand up. Your ignorance is not a defence here, Mr. Williamson.
They were told weeks in advance, and I'm kind of annoyed we don't get to see who's responsible. At the same time, I'm grateful that someone's actually uploaded this onto Twitter, because this is like how I find news clips now, because people were sharing them. What we gather from this is the fact that Gavin Williamson knew in advance this could happen. He should have known in advance this could happen, because this was not a secret. He wanted to stop any possibility of grade inflation. And so he put Ofqual in a situation where they had to do something stupid like this in order to stop grade inflation, or what's perceived as grade inflation. That how could you, some kid from this school, get an A star when no one in your school's achieved like good grades like that? That don't stand up to scrutiny. That's kind of the philosophy these guys were going for. And so if we go to our final piece, this is when we've got this guy, I think Marcus Fish is his name. He tries to blame Ofqual and Gavin Williamson's advisor. So listen to this.
I think it is fair to say that the advice being given to ministers wasn't brilliant during that process around A-levels.
Tell me how you know that.
Etc. Well, I do. And
well, what do you know? I'd love to hear more.
They were being briefed that things were okay, that it was only going to affect a couple of % of pupils, and that the appeal system would in fact work. And if it had been able to work, then it could have been possible to do it a different way. But as it turned out, their estimates of what was going to happen were way off. So there had to be a change.
Gavin Williamson's an innocent man.
Well, I think he was advised quite badly at times, and that has a consequence.
So what we can see from this is the fact that they're trying to blame the people that advised Gavin Williamson. So most likely it would be his advisors and Ofqual. But the thing is, the buck stops with Gavin Williamson. He's the minister, so it doesn't matter. They've even fired a top civil servant over this. And so the fact is that collective responsibility is gone from the cabinet. And collective responsibility is when everything goes wrong, the whole cabinet is responsible. That's why you had Robin Cook resign during, I think, the time of the Iraq War starting, purely because he didn't want to be involved in that. He didn't want to be responsible with them, so he resigned, which was the right thing to do. And so collective responsibility is out the window. And the fact is that you can blame the advice Gavin Williamson got, but we found out some guy, he's got a PhD and stuff. Him and his sister, who's a statistician, figured out that around 40% of kids are going to be impacted. So this idea that, Gavin Williamson was told that only a few kids would be impacted means that he's either incompetent at his job, that he should have, that he believed someone's information firsthand and didn't actually do any proper research. He's lazy, so he didn't want to do any work. Someone told him the algorithm's there, it's going to affect a couple of kids, don't worry about it. So he's like, all right, cool. He's lazy, didn't want to do the work. Or the fact that he knew, but he was like, people aren't going to protest over this. Because the only time these guys U-turn is when there's a mass protest over something that they've done. And so we'll go to our next piece. Ofqual Chief Advisor Sally Collier steps down after exam chaos. So the head of England's exams regulator, Sally Collier, has quit after thousands of students' marks were downgraded for exams they were unable to sit. Ofqual Chief Ms. Collier has been under fire for controversial algorithm which challenged GCSE and A-level marks, making them unfair according to heads. It also led to many A-level students losing university places they had been offered and a crunch on degree places. Education Secretary Gavin Williamson thanked her for her commitment, and he probably also thanked her for taking the bullet, because that's essentially what she's done here for Gavin Williamson. He added, moving forward, my department will continue to work closely, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, as made here, the National Education Union Joint Secretary Kevin Courtney said someone had to take responsibility for the exam fiasco, but the issue runs far deeper than the actions of one chief executive. We have no sure way of knowing where the balance of fault lies, but we can be quite certain is that Gavin Williamson gave direction to Ofqual that there should not be grade inflation and all candidates should get a fair grade. The previous chief of Ofqual, Dame Gleans Stacey, I think that's how you Dame Glean Stacey, has been asked to step in. She will run the next stage of the exams process on a temporary basis until December. The Ofqual board said, along with the chief of Ofsted, Amanda Spielman, who previously worked at Ofqual. So they have no idea what they're doing here, and the appeals process is going to be an absolute mess to the point where students are going to have to sit exams. I think that's what's going to end up happening. But she's fallen on a sword and she's gone. So, we've got this head teachers launch stinging criticism of Education Secretary. Thousands of head teachers have written to the Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson, accusing the government of repeatedly failing to listen or collaborate as schools prepare to reopen with millions of children across England. So this isn't about the exams thing, this is about the coronavirus, and this is the next thing he's going to step into. Because we've got a guy here, right? We've got a guy here who 75% of people think he's done badly over exams. 75% of people. That includes 69% of Tory voters, after a number of senior party MPs went public with their criticism over the way marks were downgraded. And so what we have is a situation what we have is a situation where Gavin Williamson is going from one disaster into another, and this is why one of the reasons why I think they've kept him, because if they fired him and got someone new in, this new person has to deal with this next fiasco. And then what will mean is you have two tainted education ministers. What you do is you let this guy get hit with a double scandal, and then you just like, oh, sorry, your time's up, Gavin. I'm sorry. And then Boris Johnson will be like, look, he wasn't up to the job, or, the task was too much for him, or something on those lines. And that's why we've got a new person to deal with it. And you'll still have a mess, but you're going to have a new person who's got a bit of time to deal with the mess. And that, I think, is the reason why Gavin Williamson is still in a job. That, or the fact that Boris doesn't actually care, because there's still the other guy in charge of housing, Robert Jenrick. He's still in the job, and he should have been sacked as well over the whole housing thing. But what we can gather from this is the fact that people do not like this guy, that people think he's already failed over the exams things. So what's next? How is he going to deal with the schools crisis? They haven't put much out. All they've said is secondary school students. They U-turn on that. They said, first secondary school students wouldn't have to wear a mask. And then they're like, oh, wait, they have to wear a mask in communal areas. Like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, this guy. And so he's done a very poor job here. So this is out of the frying pan and into the fire. My man's going to be U-turning everywhere at this rate. And so look, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're a kid going into school, or if you have kids going into school, comment on this video and let me know what you guys think of Gavin Williamson and how confident you are in your school's ability to stop, the spread of coronavirus. Let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.